Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing my out-of-box review for number 009 in the HG Iron-Blooded Orphans line. It is the Man Rodi. Speaking of 009, did any of you guys ever watch that animated series, Cyborg 009? It was a really cool series. I'd like to watch that again someday. Anyway, big thank you to MindFenix Hobby Store for sending me this kit again. Really awesome kit, really quite interesting kit here we've got. It's, I would say, even more unique than the Gusion, so definitely a really interesting kit to take a look at. Happy to share this with you guys, so let's get into the review. As you can see, very simplistic kit, and I'll show you guys a little bit later in the review this compared to the Gusion. The color scheme is generally the same, just in the fact that it's pretty much all green with just some gray sort of mechanical details, the thrusters, the joints, and things like that. The green is definitely quite different though. The Gusion was just kind of a all over kind of darkish green. This one is definitely more of like a forest kind of green there for the main body and waist section, and then the arms and legs are very Zaku-esque, sort of light green color there. So the color scheme of this one is more closer to pretty much that of a Zaku for the most part. Even the eye there, it's not really a mono eye, it's sort of a triple triangle eye, and it's kind of a mono eye though. Even that is also in the pink color, so very Zaku-esque here, though of course the design is much different. Really quite interesting design there with the legs, the feet being replaced by these, I mean, they're kind of feet, but they're more like peg legs, sort of, with these thruster bells in the middle. But if you think about it, I mean, it's operating in space. It doesn't really need like full-on feet, really. It just needs that thrusting power there. So it sort of makes sense in that way, I guess. So, I mean, it does, I mean, they still do kind of act as feet, so whatever. Anyway, it is definitely very unique. It does, like the Gusion, it does still sort of taste a little bit like something from Reconquista and G. Kind of have to wonder about some of these designs. Are they leftovers from Reconquista and G? We'll probably never know. Probably doesn't really matter too much, but it is interesting to look at it in that way. The overall design, though, is going to be pretty similar to the Gusion, like this big fat body. The head is a very similar shape. The arms are pretty similar in shape as well, especially the shoulders are not exactly the same, but similar, basically. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at the kit. The overall construction was pretty fast. I was expecting this kit to go together pretty quickly, and it did. Here on the head, so the head is pretty simple, just basically 3 pieces, 2 pieces, and then one here in the center. That is just one sticker on there. It's just black with the 3 triangles printed in the center. It's one sticker, just wraps around inside there. But just as a reminder, we did have this other set of stickers that you could just place the 3 triangles there on just the piece inside. The piece inside is just black anyway, so you could have that, or if you wanted it to be extra black, you could put that one down first and then put these on there. The reason that you have this just separated, because if you wanted those to be like looking off to the side or something, then you can stick the sticker like here on the side if you wanted. So you do have some options. The thing about that is that if you ever wanted to change it, you're going to be peeling off stickers to change that, so it's not really the most ideal thing. The other thing that's not particularly ideal about that is that if you wanted to paint this, there's no molded detail there for these 3 little triangles. That piece is just totally flat. So you'll have to be pretty good at just doing a little bit of masking there to mask 3 little triangles there if you wanted to be painting this. The articulation is going to be relatively simple. It's just on the same kind of polycap that we've seen. The head is quite long though, so it's not going to go back all that far before it's hitting the back of the torso there. Going to be going down about like that, nice and far down, to give you like a totally like covered look, like a shell, sort of like a turtle, I suppose, and then side to side and all of that. So it can get some really nice movement there in the head, everything that you're going to want, I think. Here on the shoulders, these shoulder joints are going to come forward a tiny bit, but really not all that much. Basically, we're going to have movement up only. Let's see if I can get this sorted in a way. I think because of the shape of the shoulder armor, we're not going to be able to get this arm to go up pretty much any farther than that, which is pretty pitiful, but just due to the design, I think if we tried to put it like that, it seems like it would work, but still not really getting that to move up without breaking the arm off. So Not really going to be too impressive there. The arm otherwise is just going to rotate, double bend here, but we're really only going to get about 90 degrees. So again, not really the most impressive. Hand is just on a ball joint. Interestingly though, the wrist is really quite long because the ball joint is set pretty deep inside there around this part. So we have a nice long wrist for that hand part. The waist, now here's where it does get pretty interesting though. If we take this apart, again, this waist is very similar to like the Grays, and it actually works in a very similar way too. If you remember, the Grays kind of has a little bit of like a accordion movement there in the waist, and this does sort of have a little bit similar one. You can see it kind of moves up and down like that. It's moving at the ball joint at the bottom and then in the joint up inside of there, as well as a polycap that allows it some rotation there as well. So some really nice movement here in the waist. Of course, if you're like wheeling it around too fast, you're going to pop out that ball joint. But again, pretty nice movement there. So you should be able to get some pretty dynamic movement there in the waist, and the whole kit is just falling apart on me here. Sorry about that. The side skirts, like the Gusion, are set out to the side pretty far, which is good, so you can get them all the way over around the waist, and you can get some nice movement out of those. They're going to be able to come up all the way up like that, so you're going to have no problem bringing the leg all the way out. If you wanted to do some like kicking like that, it would be kind of interesting actually. The front skirts are connected, but you can just snap those apart to move them, and then you can bring the leg all the way forward like so. The back skirt is not going to move at all, but we have this piece which is going to pull out to reveal the space where we can store our gun. So that just pulls out like that when you don't want to use it. Just pop it back into place, and that's it. These thrusters on the backpack will move, so you can move those around just a little bit if you wanted to reposition them in any certain way. Really not all that much that you could really do a whole lot with that, but it is a little something, I suppose. Cool detail there with this part in the back though. Do really like that as well. So back to the legs, as you can see, they are going to rotate there at the hip. Double joint here, but again, you're really only going to get about that much out of it. But if you bring up that leg forward, that's a good enough angle. I think you're going to be good to go for pretty much whatever you want to do. The feet, I guess you could call them that, do rotate a little bit side to side. So if you wanted to have this standing, then you can maybe have them out a little bit like that, so that these could be flat and the leg could be out at an angle. So that's pretty cool. The thruster belt inside there is just on a ball joint, as you can see, as I accidentally popped it off there. But that is probably going to move around a little bit if you pull it off the ball a little bit. But for the most part, that's just going to be stuck up in there. So otherwise, the feet don't move at all. These don't like move apart or anything like that. They're just going to rotate a little bit side to side. So that is it for the articulation. For the weapons, we have just the exact same rifle that came with the Gusion. It is in a different color though now. This is black because this came on the same runner as the piece for inside the head. Just again, same interesting design there. It is, I suppose, slightly, very, very slightly different. Here in this part underneath is just very slightly different there. But let's go ahead and pull this apart. And as I'm pulling this off, I should mention, here, this is really cool. We have these 3 thrusters there up underneath the skirt as well, which is a pretty cool detail. This gun is just going to pop into the back skirt like so, and then it can hold that on there, no problem at all. And then our other accessory is the new weapon for this kit. Is the Hammer Chopper. That is the actual name of this weapon. If you can believe it, it does sort of make sense, I suppose. This way it's a hammer, this way it's a chopper, so kind of makes sense. This has the same gap in here that you can use to plug this into the back skirt if you want. So if you're hand holding the rifle, not using the hammer chopper, just plug that into the back skirt there, and you can store that for later use. So you can't store both of them at the same time, but you can choose whichever one you want to store, and both of these weapons are just going to drop down into the hand, no problem there. Really long handle on this for some reason, but that's it for the accessories, so pretty basic really. And just to give you guys a comparison with the Man Rodi compared to the Gundam Gusion, as they were sort of teamed up together in the anime, you can see very similar in color scheme, but definitely slightly different. Height is going to be relatively similar, with the Gusion coming in a little bit taller with the head height, and with especially that back part coming up over the head. The Gusion is going to be a little bit taller. Gusion is going to be definitely wider, bulkier, just in general, larger. But I mean, they do still look like they belong together, and I think having the two of these together is definitely going to be a really cool look. Or having a couple of Man Rodi, as it was in the anime, having at least two, I think would be cool. You know, three is only better, right? Three's company. But at least just having one Gusion and a set of two Man Rodi like flying alongside it would definitely make a really cool diorama, or just like a really cool setup on your shelf if you were a fan of the designs of these mobile suits. And not everyone will be, but for anyone who would be, that would be a cool setup. So unlike the Gusion, which was pretty heavy on an action base, this one is definitely much lighter. So you're going to have no problem with this up on an action base, no weight issues of having to worry about this maybe taking a tumble or putting too much stress on your action base. It's going to be just fine with that. The movement of it is really quite nice. Besides having just this like really simplistic design for the most part, I mean, it's just like this big ball with like these two peg legs sticking off and some arms. You are still able to get some really cool dynamic poses out of it, stuff like this pose, or you know, whatever else you can think of. So I suppose that one concern that people might be having when you're getting this kit is just the simplicity of it. I mean, the mobile suit itself is not very large. The accessories are very limited. Just the hammer chopper and the rifle, and both of those are pretty much just two pieces. So yeah, you're really not getting a whole lot with this. But I mean, it is only a 1,000 yen, so a kit should cost you around $10 or less, give or take maybe a couple dollars depending on where you live in the world. But for that price, I think it's totally worth it. I think all of the Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans kits have been very low in price, which is a great thing, considering they're all really nicely engineered kits, really great quality kits. One thing about this kit that I don't like is it does have a couple of seam lines that are going to be a little bit difficult, and those are on the calves and the lower arms. These one on the lower arm here goes all across this piece where we have 1, 2, 3 panel lines going through that. So of course, sanding on panel lines just means you're going to have to do some rescribing on that. Not the worst thing in the world, but it does make your job a little bit more difficult. Here on the calves though, it's more difficult yet, just because it goes over through the middle of that little kind of like raised panel piece there, which is going to be definitely a little bit difficult, because that also has some really small details on there, these like 3 little rivets, and there's no way you're going to be able to sand and get rid of that that seam line without losing that little detail. So you can always go back and add those. That's going to be difficult still. So yeah, that's not the greatest thing, but otherwise the kit is really nicely engineered. Like I said, I think the kit moves very well. So are you getting enough bang for your buck? I think, yeah, the price is really cheap and you're not getting all that much, so it makes sense. So just to wrap this up, there are a couple other little small complaints that I could make just to compare this to the Gusion. I do wish that this did include an open hand like the Gusion did. The hands that we got with this kit, as with a lot of the Iron-Blooded Orphans kits we've got so far, though we lack options in terms of hands, the details on the hands is really, really nice, and this kit is definitely no exception. The details on this hand are really, really nice, really nicely detailed hands. Just wish that we would have got an open hand as well. The other thing is on the head. Now that it's turning its back away from the camera, we'll have to see it when it comes back around. The Vulcans on the top of the head, on the Gusion, that was a gray piece that was like part of the inside head part that fed through the top, so you had that was color separated, very easy to paint. On this kit, that will be a little bit more difficult to paint, those Vulcans on the head, as that's not a separate piece. Kind of wish that they would have applied that same sort of engineering for this kit, but you know, again, it's a minor thing that I could just point out. Other than that, that's pretty much it for this review, guys. Hope that's been helpful. If you have any other questions or comments, of course, you can leave those down below. Otherwise, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.